Normally, when you look at how a city grows, there is an expectation of, organic expansion.
Right, yeah. Like a forest slowly taking over a field.
Exactly. People settle by a river, they build a few roads, someone opens a market, and a century later, a metropolis has just sort of
It's
happened.
just naturally evolved over time.
Right. But then you look at Singapore, and that organic model gets thrown completely out the window.
Oh, absolutely. It's a totally different blueprint.
So today's sources are incredibly unique. We're looking at a fascinating stack of collaborative research notes, and they were seemingly created by a group of songwriters.
Yeah, Devin, Kelly, Kenny, Tira, and Tommy. It's such an interesting perspective.
It really is. They broke down 5 distinct areas of Singapore to extract their physical and cultural rhythms.
Because they aren't looking at GDP or tourist numbers, right? They're looking for the heartbeat of the place.
Exactly. So, welcome to this deep dive, custom tailored just for you. Our mission today is to move past the standard tourist postcard.
Which is so easy to get caught up in, the infinity pools in the skyline.
Right. We want to uncover how a city literally engineers its own soul. We're going to explore how extreme industrial ambition, ancient rainforests, and, hipster heritage all coexist on one tiny island.
It's a wild mix when you actually break it down.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because right out of the gate, the notes confront us with this stark contrast between a city that reclaims land from the sea and one that fiercely guards its ancient jungles.
Yeah, the physical foundation is where it all starts. The songwriters actually point us straight to the west first, to Tuas.
The industrial zone.
Right. They refer to Tuas as the bones of your song.
Uh-huh.
This is the megaport. It's designed to be the largest fully automated port on the planet.
But the wild part to me is that for a lot of history, Tuas wasn't even there.
No, it was literally just water.
Yeah, back in the 60s through the 80s, Singapore was shifting into this massive global trade hub, and they just ran out of space.
So they just built more space.
Exactly. They undertook these staggering land reclamation projects. And, you don't just dump dirt in the ocean.
No, the mechanics are mind-bending.
Right. You build massive seawalls, you sink these hollow concrete structures called caissons into the seafloor, and those are basically the size of apartment buildings.
Which is just terrifying to think about.
Seriously. And then you pump millions of cubic meters of dredged sand into the void until the ocean is just forced backward.
What's fascinating here is that Tuas didn't grow naturally at all. It was engineered into existence for pure economic pragmatism.
It is pure machinery. I was reading this section, and it struck me that Tuas is essentially the engine room of a luxury cruise ship.
Oh, that is a perfect analogy.
Right, because the tourists lounging up on the top deck, sipping cocktails, they never see the engine room.
They don't hear the noise.
Exactly. But it's that mechanical rhythm and the immigrant labor down below in health work boots and neon safety vests that actually powers the whole glamorous journey.
Yeah, thousands of people working under a punishing equator sun.
Mm-hmm.
But an engine room alone doesn't make a society, right?
Right, the workers have to clock out eventually.
And that necessity bridges us to Jurong East. The songwriters noted a core theme for Jurong East, which is built with intention, lived with connection.
Because Jurong East used to just be impassable swampland and Gambier plantations.
Which was a harsh, muddy agricultural environment.
Yeah, Gambia is a plant extract used in tanning leather. But they transformed that swamp into a rigid manufacturing zone, and now, today, it's becoming Singapore's second CBD.
The bridge between industrial efficiency and human lifestyle.
It's wild. You have major train interchanges, massive modern malls like Westgate, and JQ.
JQ, which famously had an Olympic-sized ice rink.
Right. You are sitting 1 degree north of the equator in a tropical climate, and you build an indoor winter wonderland.
It's the ultimate flex over nature.
It really is. But they also have the Jurong Lake Gardens there, monitor lizards, wild otters, all wandering past manicured trees.
It softens that rigid industrial vibe.
Yeah, but, a city obsessed with engineered growth and land reclamation must eventually clash with nature.
Oh, inevitably.
Which brings us to Bukit Timah.
Yeah, a completely different rhythm. If Tuas is the mechanical bass line, Bukit Timah is the acoustic melody.
I love that. So Bukit Timah Hill is Singapore's highest point, exactly 163 meters.
It contains one of the oldest primary rainforests in the world.
And it's been preserved since 1883. You literally walk off a paved street, and suddenly you are swallowed by towering dipterocarp trees.
Which are these massive hardwood giants. They create a canopy so thick, it actually changes the temperature of the air below.
And the wildlife. Long-tailed macaques, flying lemurs known as colugos.
Just gliding around in the twilight.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, wave on me.
In a place where land is so incredibly valuable that they literally build new land into the ocean, like tuas, how on earth did a massive ancient jungle survive right in the center of the city?
I mean, the real estate value alone must be astronomical.
Right. Why not bulldoze it for luxury condos?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, preserving Bukit Timah is actually as much an intentional engineered choice as building tuas,
Wait, really? How so?
because it reflects a cultural value of balance. If you pave over every inch of green space, you create a psychological pressure cooker for the population.
So mental burnout becomes an economic cost.
Exactly. The sanctuary is civic infrastructure. The notes highlight this beautiful contrast, silk and sneakers walking the same road.
Oh, I saw that. Seeing older residents in traditional clothing hiking right alongside teenagers in modern athletic gear.
Yeah, against the backdrop of Marina Bay Sands in the distance. It shows that nature here isn't an accident. It's a guarded sanctuary against the extreme urban density.
That makes total sense. So while Bukit Timah preserves the natural past, Singapore had to find a very different way to deal with its human past.
And that gets complicated on a land-scarce island.
Very complicated. The deep dive shifts here to Bishan and Tiong Bahru.
Two very different neighborhoods.
Right, Bishan is a 1980s new town, famous for heartland life, families, otters in the park.
And Tiong Bahru is much older, built in the 1930s. Beautiful Art Deco architecture.
Yeah, the rounded corners, spiral staircases, but they share one shocking detail.
The cemeteries.
Yes. Both of these vibrant areas were originally massive cemeteries.
It's pretty jarring to think about.
Bishan used to be the Kwong YC Pek Sam Theng Cemetery, over 100,000 graves.
And Tiong Bahru literally translates to New Cemetery in Hokkien.
I just marvel at the literal poetry of this, from silent stones to city lights.
It was a massive existential decision for the government. They had to exhume the graves and move them to columbarians.
Which is a huge cultural taboo.
Massive. But it encapsulates that Singaporean pragmatism we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They prioritize sanitary housing for the living over real estate for the dead.
But they don't just erase the past, right? They build upon it.
Exactly. Tiong Bahru is the perfect synthesis.
Yeah, today it's this total hipster haven. You have books, actually, street art, indie cafes.
It's surreal that a place defined by its past graves is now where young creatives sip lattes.
Right next to the hawker center, where grandmas are selling traditional chui ku.
Those steamed rice cakes with preserved radish. So good.
So we have the Tuas dock worker, the Tiong Bahru hipster, and the Bishan family.
A huge spectrum of people.
Yeah, so how do you connect them? What is the cultural glue?
It comes down to the shared rhythms of daily life. And food is the ultimate equalizer.
Oh, definitely. Hainanese chicken rice, laksa, satay, roti prata.
The government actually built these hawker centers to force egalitarian shared spaces.
So the CEO and the construction worker are in the same line.
Sweating in the same humidity for a $4 plate of chicken rice?
I love that. And music does the same thing. You have man and pop icons like Stephanie Sun and JJ Lin existing alongside indie and hip-hop.
But the biggest glue is the language. Singlish.
Yes. Singlish is brilliant. It's this blend of English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil.
It's the true heartbeat of the streets.
I want to break down some slang for you listening, like canla, which just means it's possible.
Adding the law softens it, builds camaraderie.
And shuk, which means highly satisfying, usually about food.
Yeah, that laksa was shuk.
Exactly. But my favorite concept is choping.
Oh, reserving a seat with a tissue packet?
It is brilliant. In a packed food center, you just leave a cheap packet of tissues on a chair and no one touches it.
It's an ironclad social contract.
So what does this all mean? Why should our listener care about these local quirks?
Well, this raises an important question about how we build our own communities.
How so?
Whether you are managing a remote team or organizing a neighborhood, Singapore proves that immense diversity can thrive harmoniously.
Chinese, Malay, Indian, and migrant cultures all together.
Right. But it works because they provide shared communal spaces, like the hawker centers, and a shared casual language that belongs to everyone.
That is such a great takeaway. To wrap up this journey, the spectrum of these sources is just massive.
From mechanical beats to ancient canopies.
Yeah, the engineered port of Tuas, the Kalugos gliding through the 19th century Bukit Timah rainforest, all the way to chopping a seat for kaya toast in the historic streets of Tiong Bahru.
It's a place of constant transformation.
It really is. And I want to leave you with one final lingering concept from the notes. The national motto of Singapore is Majula Singapura.
which translates to Onward Singapore.
Right. So if a nation is fundamentally programmed into its very motto to constantly move onward, always reclaiming, always rebuilding, always engineering the next phase, at what point does a city decide it is finally finished?
Or does a place built entirely on transformation have to keep changing forever just to survive?
Exactly. It makes you wonder what onward means for your own life. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.